mathematical cognition here. In first, we're going to talk about the 29 notch pattern and lunar synchronization. So the most widely discussed interpretation of the Lebombo bone centers on its potential function, as a lunar phase counter or early calendar. The number 29 is profoundly significant because it closely approximates the 29.5-day synodic month, the period from one new moon to the next. This correlation suggests that the bone's creator, the bone's creator, not the discoverer, but the creator, the inventor, if you want, possessed sophisticated observational capabilities, tracking the moon's phases across the night sky and encoding this cosmic rhythm into a permanent portable record. So what you should understand from this first paragraph is that now we're talking about the functionalities of that tool made by an African in Africa a very long time ago, not in the 1960s, not in the 1970s, but earlier than that. And if the functionalities of that bone in the context of a lunar phase counter or a calendar are all valid, this is going to suggest that whoever made that 44,000 years ago to 43,000 years ago possessed, or better, had mastered complex capabilities that we're going to cover later on. Okay, next there, so a Scottish astronomer, David Day, in the Universal Book of Mathematics, 2004, publication 2004, explicitly states the Lebombo bones, 29 notches, may have been used as a lunar phase counter, in which case African women may have been the first mathematicians, because keeping track of menstrual cycles requires a lunar calendar. Now again, there's a debate of who. We can't debate on was it made by an African, because obviously it was. Now, the gender of the African who made that could be debated or discussed. But as to the necessities, they are clear. So this interpretation positions the bone not merely as a counting device, but as an early manifestation of mathematical abstraction, abstract thinking if you want, the ability to map an observable natural cycle onto a structured numerical system. Now, that is not something that most people can do. According to cognitive psychology and cognitive neuroscience, in the different stages of the development of the cognition of an individual from birth to approximately the age of 12, it is towards the last step, arguably the step before the last step, that most humans actually reach this kind of thinking, symbolic thinking, abstract thinking, and some adults, even in our society, are not able to actually exhibit such skills. So again, here we're talking about 44,000 years ago in Africa by an African. Yeah. So keep it in mind. We continue. So next we're going to discuss point B, which is the menstruation-based calendar thesis. Let's go. So the lunar calendar hypothesis naturally extends to what scholars have termed the menstruation-based calendar thesis. This theory, developed by ethnomathematician, the theory of the menstruation-based calendar existed already in Africa 44,000 years ago. So the name of the person here in 1992, she did not invent the mechanism, or rather the system. She used her own word to articulate the possibility of that functionality of the tool. Now that's very important to understand. Now that it is understood by my very smart audience, then we can continue. Okay. All right. And social philosopher William I.T. in 1981 as well, they proposed that the bone may have been used by women to track their menstrual cycles. Okay. So people, 44 African women, hypothetically used an advanced mathematical thinking technique to track their menstrual cycles, not just mentally, but using an abstract object to do so. Again, the people listed here did not invent that methods. They simply, in the course of the argument or discussion, articulated it in their materials. Next, Zaslavsky, hopefully I've pronounced it correctly, in her seminal article, Women as the First Mathematicians. Again, African women should have been actually more accurate, but yeah, so is very important. It's very important to actually say that, right? So it's African women in the case of the conversation, with everything that we've established previously. Okay, pose the rhetorical question now: who but a woman? I'm going to actually adapt it to make it fit again for accuracy purposes. Yeah, who but an African woman keeping track of her cycles would need a lunar calendar? Okay. She concluded that whichever way you look at it, women, again, African women, were undoubtedly the first mathematicians. Okay? Not women in Greece, not women in Europe. African women were undoubtedly the first mathematicians. Yeah, so I'm commenting as here. You can read what she said. I am just correcting, if you want, or better, maybe adapting it to the established previous items to take into consideration in this conversation. Okay, so Thompson, in the time falling bodies take to light in 1981, proposed that a woman was the first to note a correspondence between an internal process she was going through and an external process in nature. African women, again, I'm going to adapt it because once again the people listed or cited in this conversation did not invent the process nor the system.